Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Watchlist here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where my guests and I play a little bit of movie roulette and randomly select a film from my obscenely large watch list that could be basically anything. We just so happen to land on what is a pretty famous and appreciated film from Robert Altman from the early 70s, and that is The Long Goodbye. And joining me is Chris Roberts for now it's regular occurrence here on the show. But Chris, thank you so much for coming on.
That's a pleasure to be here as always.
And we love shameless plugs here. So where can people find you, Chris?
Yeah, if you love my takes on this, and I hope you do, you can always find me
Mhm.
over at Movie Smash, where we discuss movies based on comic books, and we cover them all. Doesn't matter if they're superheroes, adventure comics, or even Garfield. So
Yeah.
we cover them all.
I hate Mondays too. You go, Garfield. But but yes, we are discussing 1973's The Long Goodbye. Here, Private Eye Philip Morrow helps friend Terry Lennox out of a jam and is implicated in his wife Sylvia's murder. He also is hired by Eileen Wade to locate her dipsomaniac husband Roger, who frequently disappears when he wants to dry out. So as you could probably guess from this synopsis, there's a lot going on in this hard-boiled uh, neo-noir film here, and some backstory for the film. This was released March 7th, 1973, runs about an hour and 52 minutes. It had a budget of 1.7 million, but only made $959,000 at the box office, so made just over half its budget back. This is indeed directed by Robert Altman and music by John Williams, which is interesting. Starring Elliot Gould. I'm a huge Elliot Gould fan, so when I saw that he was going to be in this, I was pretty excited about that. This is indeed based off of Raymond Chandler's Philip Morrow novel, which, for those who that sound familiar, The Big Sleep, and a lot of those old Humphrey Bogart hard-boiled film noirs. This is just, dropped in 1970s California. Uncredited appearance by Arnold Schwarzenegger,
You ruined it for me. I was going to save that for later.
which that's I think that's one of the more interesting like tidbits here. He just shows up and it's just like, oh my God, it can be no other person. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, you saw him on the corner of your eye, and like, is that? And then he has like a mustache, and then you're like, takes his
Yes.
shirt off. You're like, yep, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It's Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is updated from the book setting of the 1940s to 1970s. This is entered into the National Film Registry. There's a television version released in 1954 of this story, one of three Chandler novels unadapted to film when he died. So this was actually post Chandler passing away. And Howard Hawks and Peter Bogdanovich both declined to direct this film. So those are some pretty big heavy hitters Hollywood wise. Gold was not in good standing after his bad behavior on A Glimpse of Tiger. So this was a pretty risky casting for him in the film. Altman wanted him. I don't think the studio did because he has a bit of a rambunctious behavior at this time. And Lee Marvin and Robert Mitchum were the producers' top choices to play the characters, which Robert Mitchum, obviously, he was such a big film noir star back when, film noirs were becoming big. It would have been a very interesting dynamic with him being a much older character. And then Lee Marvin is a interesting choice. Definitely not a Elliot Gould type. Very
No,
different vibe. A little bit more intense. But Lee Marvin could let loose, paint my wagon, which ridiculous. But that's the background that I have here. But I guess, Chris, real quick, what experience do you have with Philip Marlowe and like those old Raymond Chandler novels?
very little.
Okay.
Like, so that's I say I went in this completely blind.
Hmm.
All the backstory you have just said, I did not even look at all.
Okay.
I try to go in. A lot of the movies I try to go into, like even with the comic book movies we do, is that try not
Mhm.
to bias myself on them if I don't know anything about them, and then go back and do the research to get a sense of like how off am I with my take on things. But yeah, I really wasn't too familiar with it at all. But yeah, Elliot Gould in this, he's a young Harry Eric Elliot Gould.
Yeah, indeed. It's like it's so funny because I fell in love with him because of the Ocean's movies because I love Ruben. That character is so great. It's like, wait a minute, Danny, those are Harry Benedict's casinos. Him and just like his hairy belly sticking out in his bathroom next to his pool and everything. So obviously he was in the MASH film as well. And it's funny because my wife knew him because he's um Monica and Ross's dad in Friends.
Yep.
So obviously a lot of people watched Friends knew who Elliot Gould was from that
Well,
for sure.
well, I was talking to my wife about this, and I was like, "Oh, it's an Elliot Gould movie," and she's like, "Why do I know that name?" And I was like, "Well, he's literally been in everything. I'm just go
Yep.
look his IMDb up. It's 160 plus movies.
Yep.
He has had a long, stable career. He's not always like the top billing, but he has
Yep.
been around a very long time and has never stopped."
Actually, I think this is the first movie that I watched where he was the lead. Like even in MASH, it's a duo act.
Yeah.
Um and playing off each other, but this film's really like resting on his shoulders. And I'm a big fan of the Coen brothers, and they're big fans of Raymond Chandler. The Big Lebowski is basically like this movie except lampooned.
You,
Um
you know, now you said, yeah, this is the Big Lebowski, just
yeah,
you know, a hippie detective in the and from California.
Yep. So like it's so funny because I could see the surface level like connections and stuff of the Big Lebowski to like the 40s Raymond Chandler adaptations. Then I watched this movie, I'm like, this has to be what the Coen brothers had in mind when they were making the Big Lebowski and what they're channeling here. And like stuff like Inherent Vice from Paul Thomas Anderson, like a lot of those newer LA contemporary noir films, or at least like the 70s on, definitely had a lot of vibes from this film. And it's interesting because I guess, Chris, do you have a whole lot of experience with Robert Altman's films?
I've seen a couple of them. They're not coming to mind, but yes. Like when you said, "Oh, the Robert Altman version," I was like, "Oh, I know Robert,"
Yeah.
as if we're on a first name basis.
Because like obviously Nashville is probably like his most well-known film. I actually the first film I watched of his was Gosford Park because
Oh, okay.
quick aside, when I was big on those mail-in book and movie clubs back when I was like a preteen into being a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And DVDs had just come out, and I was doing those DVD clubs through the mail where you had to like find the movie's number, put them on the little card,
Yep.
and like mail them in. The second movie of the month for the first DVD club I ever did was Gosford Park.
Okay.
And like 11, 12 year old Shane didn't appreciate Gosford Park, but adult Shane loves Gosford Park. And you could definitely tell that was made with the guy who made Downton Abbey, because all those hints of like what Downton Abbey is definitely is there. And then I recently watched The Player for the first time last year, and I loved that with
Hmm.
Tim Robbins. So, and one of my review requests I did was it Three Women was another film of his around this era, but I was very interested to see Elliot Gould and Robert Altman here. Also, I'm a big Sterling Hayden fan from like Asphalt Jungle and Doctor Strangelove. He's Roger Wade, except he's a lot fuzzier here. I'm used to him playing. Oh yeah, because obviously the first thing I saw him was The Godfather because he's McCluskey the cop.
Yeah.
And like it was really weird seeing him like scruffy with a beard and not being like a
Clean
cop or a
shaven and
military guy and stuff like that. But enough asides and setup here in background. But Chris, what were your general thoughts on The Long Goodbye?
so generally speaking, for those who have not seen the movie, it's very slow. Like it is a slow
Yes.
burn. However,
Yeah.
it has sort of moments of violence.
Yes.
Um, but generally speaking, it is a slow, like you can't watch it in the background because you'll turn around and they're now a whole new, you know, couple scenes
Yeah.
further along, and
It's like,
there's
how
no,
did we get to Mexico?
yeah, and there's no audio indication it's happening. This is, you know, in today's modern media, a lot of the producers that are out there talk about a second screening movie, meaning that you can look at your phone and look at things at the same time. You can't do that with this. Look, I tried. You can't do it. And I'm really good at that.
Mhm.
My ADHD gives me that superpower. But going back to this though, like you need to focus on it because it's all dialogue.
Yes.
It's very slow paced, except for when it's not, and it goes very
Mhm.
quickly. And there are a lot of also like sort of I almost want to call them background gags that are happening that you will miss if you're not paying attention.
Mhm.
Like the girls in the apartment next door, like they're always in
Yes.
the background.
Yeah.
It's not salacious or anything like that, but like it's funny. Like they are as a group, they're their own character.
Yep.
Though I do have to say, I wrote down as a note after the first 15 minutes that the best actor in this movie is probably going to end up being that cat because that cat, for those who haven't seen it yet, the detective, Ellie Gould, he has a cat, and the
Mhm.
cat, which is sort of the instigator of this whole adventure he's on. The cat is hungry, wants food, and he's all out of the curry brand food. So he goes to
Yeah.
the 24-hour, convenience shop. They're out of the curry food, so he buys the generic food and comes back and takes the generic food and puts it into the curry can. And I'm like
Mhm.
watching him do this. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I don't understand. It's like he's shoving in there. I'm like, is this the way you're going to prepare it? Like, what is? And he pulls it out, puts it on the tray for the cat, and the cat comes in, and he's pretending like he's opening the can from the curry,
Mhm.
one for the cat. He's going through this whole like this act, so the cat believes it's the curry, and the cat smells it, doesn't take a bite, like, and just walks away. And I'm like, what? Who trained this animal? This animal's amazing that he knew not to eat that food.
So funny as a owner of three cats. This is like this is peak cat owner in a movie kind of behavior because you're gonna try to outsmart that cat, and the cat's gonna have none of it.
Yeah.
Like what has to do with food, you're not tricking that cat. Cat might get something over on you because they're wily and but no, it was that was very relatable. I'm just like, wow, this guy just loves his cat, but is so done with his cat, which I feel like is the vibe with most cat owners.
Yeah. Now, I'm not a cat owner. I'm a dog owner, but
Yeah,
and I do like the fact that the cat then it leads to like a cardboard door.
yeah.
It's written in Spanish, and then
Mhm.
for the rest of the movie, like he keeps coming up and like he mentions the cat, but we never really see the cat again. And at the very end of the movie, he realizes the cat has left him. Um, as many things in his life seem to happen.
This is like Philip Marlowe's having a rough go. Um, and that was a very important point that you brought up about yes, in today's like viewing culture, this is not made for modern audiences
No,
to
not at
be able
all.
to multitask because there's so many little details and there's so much subtlety in just how it's moving along. It's some I don't know if dreamlike's the right way, but there's just like there's a misty kind of feel to like if this were in the 40s, there'd be a bunch of cigarette smoke and like urban setting, but like it still captures that like noirish feel really well, except you're in California. And there's like a bunch of attractive young women across the way just doing shenanigans and the beach. So
Yep.
it still has that kind of vibe. And there is something that I've noticed in some of Robert Altman's films that do have this kind of atmosphere about it. And obviously this has been something channeled in a lot of different types of films like that. It's like that uh hazy kind of like stoner crime thriller type feel, despite the fact that like this really isn't like nobody's like smoking marijuana throughout the whole entire film. But this it just kept reminding me so much of The Big Lebowski and Inherent Vice. I'm just like, somebody's a big Robert Altman fan in terms of like channeling these kinds of energies. Elliot Gould is extremely charismatic and so grumpy. Like he's just like going through life. He's down on his luck. He has that you have that one friend who shows up and gets you in a bunch of shenanigans and you regret it because you probably shouldn't have trusted them. Except this is to like the nth degree. Because where the story goes is kind of wild.
Yeah, and the couple things of that too is that he, as a character, we aren't told his backstory. We aren't told who he is, but we were given hints as to sort of his role in this world because
Yep.
there's a scene where he's arrested and he doesn't necessarily know them, but they know who
Mhm.
he is. And
Yep.
he's a private eye. And then when he gets in the prison, or sorry, the jail, it's not a prison.
Yeah.
The some of the prisoners know who he is, right? They're
Yep.
like, hey, well, how's your sister doing? Like, and
Yeah.
and he knows the procedure, which is why he doesn't care. He's very
Yep.
aloof. He's like, this is not bothering me. He starts putting the ink from the fingerprinting on his face, which
Yep.
is that blackface? I don't know, but he does it anyway. He has fun with it. And he's like, I don't care that you're interrogating me. Like, you're the worst. And he is the worst interrogator, by the way, that cop. Like, it is terrible. But it just sort of plots along. Like, it's kind of like a series of events are occurring, and these characters are just there for the ride. They're not necessarily causing these events to occur, because like Elliot's in his home, and his friend comes over and says, I need to a ride to Tijuana. Okay, I gave you a ride to Tijuana. Great. Comes back.
Yeah.
Cops come in and say, we're taking to jail and going to interrogate you because we sort of set up the scenario where you bumped into me and I can say it was assault.
Yeah.
And he's stuck in jail for 3 days, and nobody tells him why he's in jail. Right.
No.
And then he gets a case where he's going to be paid $50 a day. And for people who don't know what inflation means, a sandwich was sold in the movie for 25 cents. So $50 a day, not too bad.
Yep.
And this woman, it just happens to be the person who is married to this other sort of crazy guy. And she wants to investigate him. They go investigate. I'm not trying to give away the ending just yet. And then this leads to him, investigating this guy who ends up being connected to his first case. And it's just all sort of like a lot of coincidences that occur. And one takeaway I did have from this, and maybe it's just a bad take on it, but it really did feel that, that old hypothetical of like Indiana Jones didn't have to be there in that movie for those events to occur. Elliot Gould didn't have to be in that movie. All those events would have still. I enjoyed it, and don't get me wrong, I enjoyed his take, I enjoyed his character, and I enjoyed the ride he took us on. But I think those same events probably would have occurred, except for the very, very ending.
Except for the very, very end, and that's a very important distinction of like. There's so many films like and keep going back to the Big Lebowski. It's the same exact like. What's the dude even doing here?
Yeah,
and it just. This film has that very episodic of like, on to the next thing, on to the next shenanigans. And like, there's always something. Like, he takes his trip to Tijuana, just wants to get home. Finally home, cops are there, like, they're coming with us. It's just like, why? And the more he gets involved in this, the more people he gets involved with, and the more they're all connected. And it's just like, it's by that point it's just like that like really concentrating a woman meme where like all the math stuff starts going on. We're like, how's this all coming together? And then he turns into like the Charlie Day meme where he's like freaking out with all like the
the
pins
red
and the
lines.
post-its and because like after a while, Philip Marlowe knows what he's doing on some level because he starts to realize there's something afoot here, and this is all connected. And he's not 100% correct, but he's certainly correct that there's some shenanigans going on, because it's like his friend's wife is murdered. What happened to his friend? And then you have this Wade family, this couple, and like how are they connected to the Lennoxes? And then you have this Augustine guy who's some kind of criminal boss that just wants his money back. And then you have this strange doctor who Henry Gibson popping up in this was so interesting since he's like one of the big pieces of Nashville. So obviously would go on to work with Robert Altman again, and he's such a interesting character actor. He's so small, and he has this very distinct like vibe to him. And I've known him since like watching the Blues Brothers and the Burbs when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And like he's just this strange character that comes in and out. That's the thing. This movie is so full of these in and out characters that you almost forget about them. And then you realize, oh wait, somebody still owes this person money. And then they swoop back in there.
Well, I think that brings up a very good point too, is that there are so many characters that they feel like they're going to have bigger parts, but they don't. Such as when he gets picked up he's at the police station, he's being released 3 days later, and that guy picks him up and says like, I figured you would need a ride because they always worry about getting you here, but they never worry about getting you home. And he tells him like, I've got 3 days of newspapers for you to read, right? And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be his partner. This is going to be the guy that's going to help facilitate this call to adventure. And we never see him again.
Yep. This film is full of so many red herrings that it keeps you on your toes. And it there's a fluidity to how this plot plays out because that thing it just flows into scenes. And to your point, that's why like if you look away for a second too long, it's just like, how did we wind up in Mexico again?
Yeah,
And all of these different elements, and because there's a pretty big conspiracy going on here. There's some wild stuff going on with all these characters.
like I said, I didn't look at the cast or anything before watching the movie, and there's a scene where he goes to the doctor's office or the private hospital,
Yep.
and we see the three nurses and the doctor, who is, as you mentioned, Henry Gibson. And my first thought is like Kentucky Fried Chicken movie. That was literally my thought going through my head when I saw it. I was like, oh, he's going to be important, and he plays the
And,
same character in that movie.
yeah, well, and this is the interesting thing is because I certainly felt like I was, where's this going? I need to know. And we kept going from scene to scene, yet it moves methodically, except there's like spurts of energy and violence that are pretty shocking. And this film doesn't pull punches and go into some dark places unexpectedly. And where you think this like Ellie Gould's kind of like grumpy but funny, and you're thinking, oh, maybe this will be like a fun kind of kid. Where it's like, no, this is some heavy stuff.
Yeah, like do you
And
see who's the I want to call him mob boss? What was his name again?
Augustine.
Augustine. Yeah, like there's a scene where he's trying to threaten. He's a little. You can tell he's a little off his rocker. And he's
Yes.
trying to threaten our main character and giving him his money, which of course he doesn't know he's looking for the money. He never tells him he wants his money until the very end of it. Like
Yeah.
talk about miscommunication. And he, I just spoil a little bit. He takes the bottle and smashes it on his girlfriend's face and sends her to the hospital and to prove how much he's willing to hurt our main character, because he's like, I'm willing to hurt something I find beautiful. You're
Mhm.
not beautiful. Just think what I'll do to you when you don't give me my money back. And of course, we at this point they were like, "Oh, there's money involved." Like we had no idea up to this point.
Well, and that's the interesting thing is because a lot of this Marlowe's on his heels
Yes.
because like he doesn't know what's going on, and in many ways he's being played by some of these characters, and some of the characters unexpectedly are playing him that you might not suspect that are playing him. And that's what makes this film so intriguing. And it's the experience of watching Marlowe piece things together that's so interesting. And this this is interesting because it takes a very personal turn. Because like I've seen like other Philip Marlowe, because like I've watched The Big Sleep.
Yeah.
I even Liam Neeson actually played Philip Marlowe in a new adaptation that came out last year. Very under the radar, and I don't think a whole lot of people saw it. But like this is a very personal story for this character because like it's involving his friend, and then it becomes even more increasingly personal and also messy, and mm, not everybody makes it out of the story okay.
No, like
And yeah.
so you're saying it's like personally. I've got a question for you. I want your take on this. Now, do you mind if
Yeah.
I spoil a little bit?
Well, I think we're at the point where we could dive in a little bit to
Okay.
this 53-year-old movie.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure that those who are thinking about seeing it this weekend at their local multiplex, I'm not ruining it for you. So there, he gets hired by who we find out is the mistress of his friend.
Yes.
Um, my question is, why did she even hire him? Like, I was trying to figure out the impetus of like, why was she like, because they were in the clear at this point. She could have literally ran off to Tijuana, or gotten her husband killed, or done something else. Like, because her husband actually committed suicide. But if she had just like not involved him at all, they were in the clear.
I I don't know if it was
Or
like
maybe I was just looking at my phone at that moment.
well, no, this might be some 4D chess of like her trying to there's somebody else she needed to get out of the way too, which was, her husband. And Marlowe and him getting involved in this whole situation. And as it turns out, like Sterling Hayden's character, who's extremely volatile and dangerous, winds up like drowning himself. just walks out into the ocean, A Star Is Born style.
I was thinking the same thing.
Like our last episode. And like
We shouldn't be
I
having a theme. We can only do movies where a character walks out into the ocean and kills himself.
Yep. Um and I feel like they felt the need to try to set him up with something and to divert. And like, was that 100% necessary? As you pointed out, like they all believed that Lennox killed himself and he's gone. Like, and obviously he covered his tracks in Mexico until somebody else comes paying $5,000 bills to try to get information. And it's one of those types of things where it's like they probably could have got away with this. They probably could have gotten away with this if they didn't involve him in the first place. And I think there's a sense of arrogance. So getting to the last scene, it's very clear that Lennox doesn't think highly of Marlowe. And this is all thinking like, oh, I'll get this idiot to fall for this whole entire charade and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which he personally like Marlowe didn't 100% get what was going on, but he got enough along to, get to this point.
Well, I think it's more that he saw his friend as a tool, as a way to facilitate his end goal. His end goal was he wanted to escape with enough money to be with his mistress and live a nice, happy life in Tijuana. That's what he wanted. And he knew he's going to burn every bridge he had to get there. So Marlowe was just another bridge, another casualty along the way. That he didn't really, it's not that, oh, I think so little of him. It's more like, who can I call at 2:00 in the morning who will drive me to Tijuana, no questions asked?
Yep. Philip Marlowe. And I guess Marlowe was a smokescreen for Augustine, because who did Augustine go to get the money?
Yeah.
Augustine didn't ask too many questions about what happened to Lennox.
Well, because he thought he was dead. So remember, so he thought like, oh, this friend helped him get there. He must be in on the money. So I see his connection. I understand why he went after him.
Well, maybe that's why they got him involved, was to deflect. Well, I guess that doesn't explain why she specifically hired him.
Exactly. Like she could have hired anybody else to make her husband go insane.
Well, if any of you listening in the comments want to point out if we missed a little detail here somewhere, but like it feels like it's one of those types of things where you shouldn't have gotten this person involved, and it comes back to bite you.
Exactly.
Because as we find out, Marlowe's not the kind of person that's just going to let this lie.
And he has a reputation that he doesn't do that. Like we learn that he is a guy who once he's a dog with a bone. Yep. He just keeps going. He kind of lackadaisical goes with it. He kind of goes at a leisurely pace, but he'll get there.
Well, and he certainly got there at the end, because Lennox paid for, screwing with the wrong guy.
He did.
And that was a pretty like, oh, whoa, Marlowe went there. And I think this is where this all comes back full circle of like that noir feel that Philip Marlowe is not a hero. This man is a morally flexible individual who, for the right amount of money, could be on your side, but you don't want to cross somebody like this. And I think Ellie Gould embodied, because it became so personal to him. And yeah, he wanted some payback for all of the stuff that he had to go throughout this film. And I felt like Altman built that tension up to that moment. And damn.
Well, because let's be honest, there was no one else he could exact that revenge upon, because he wanted to go after Ellen Wade, but she fled the country. We don't know where we know where she ended up going, but at the time we had no idea where. She sold her house and like pulled up her roots and was gone in 24 hours. And then and also he could go after the mob boss. That would be just suicidal.
100%, because like Arnold Schwarzenegger would pop your head.
Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger will pull out his Mr. Freeze gun and just kill you. But we don't know where he's going to go. So he's like the only person. Once I discover this guy, he's the only one that can get my wrath. So that's who gets it. And which is that right? Probably not. But that's all he could do. And he's also in another country that the American laws aren't going to be able to get him. So he's like,
no, if you have enough money, they don't care.
They don't care. Like you give him one of the $5,000 bills in the country or whatever the number was. Yeah. And it's all done, right?
It's all good.
It's all
casually
good.
Go back to California. Nobody asks any more questions. And
by the way, a question for you, Mrs. Wade. Does she own any piece of clothing other than a nightshirt? Because I swear every scene she's in, no matter what time of day it is, she's wearing like one of those like long lacy nightshirts.
She's a free-spirited rich lady who can do whatever the hell she wants.
And also
It was
Roger,
very like 70s California vibe. I'm just like, this woman is free and loose and not worrying about it. She's obviously she's the femme fatale of the film in that noir model, but like 70s California version. She's not in like this like red or black dress or anything. I was like, no, this is like cool. I'm just like casually going around in these scantily night dresses.
yeah, exactly. Now her husband Roger Wade, in his moments of clarity and in his not his moments of violence, I actually was starting to like him a little bit. I was like, oh, he's gonna like because he saves him from the sanitarium, and
Yep.
he has a little outrage at his wife, who we later learn was working to get him to go crazy,
Well,
right?
yeah. At the end of the day, he had some reasons to be mad.
Yeah, he did. So like when they're sitting on the beach having a drink, like I actually started liking his character a little bit.
Mhm.
Like I like the when he goes like I know faces, right? I know men's faces, and he's like because with a face like this you got to right.
Yeah.
Like that conversation, I was enjoying the conversation. He was laid back. He was talking about when people come over to have a drink and they always want something very specific. I'm like, oh, this guy's got some deep thoughts. Let's hear him out. And then yeah, he is crazy as well, and he ends up killing himself. But
Well, and it's the challenging thing because there's those things that take him away from that clarity
yes,
that makes him a complicated character. And Sterling Hayden is a actor that I feel like doesn't get enough credit for like he makes some really interesting characters. And it was very interesting seeing him in this because he's the lead in the Asphalt Jungle, which is a very famous noir film, but it's much more traditional. Like,
yeah.
here's a heist crew and he's the muscle. Because he looks like he would be that kind of character. And here he's like this like artsy, bearded, kind of little kooky kind of character. And like he was having some fun with him, and I
Yeah,
appreciated that. Him and Elliot Gould together, there's some energy in those scenes together, and it's really interesting watching them together.
yeah, and he's what 6'4", 220 pounds. You can't miss
Yep.
him, as
Yeah.
you were told. Being a guy who's 6'3", yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
And but sitting him like I was like trying to ponder at that moment, like once we find the big reveal that she's behind it all and his friends behind it all, like did she work to get him put into that sanitarium? Because that doctor was very ambitious to get him to stay
Yes.
there. So like
I
my thought was like maybe he was completely sober, maybe he was completely fine, and she got him to go into the hospital, and maybe this guy did something to him while we were in it. We don't know that. And so I was like, maybe that's the plot of how she was trying to get rid of him, and she just needs someone to like pull him out to get him to hurt himself, essentially.
Well, and I feel like the best explanation I can get to why she gets involved with Marlowe is the husband character and trying to push some kind of buttons and stuff like that because it worked
It did.
at the end of the day.
Like,
Like,
and she didn't do the whole traditional like, oh, make him believe we're having an affair or something. No, it's just like they started bonding, and I mean, he had a beach party.
yeah.
He was serving hot dogs. I
Mhm.
mean, you can't go wrong. I also I was wondering like, what did he do before this as a job? Because he's pretty wealthy.
Yeah. Which I,
I don't know if they mentioned it or not. Not
I
that it's
thought
important to the
he was
plot.
I thought he was some kind of writer or something, but I'm not
Oh, he
hot.
wrote that book. He did write a
Yeah,
book that what was the title of the book?
trying to remember
It was
here.
like
I'm
three
pulling up.
words. Because that's right. He was his picture was on the jacket sleeve of it, and that's what he was
Yeah,
showing around saying, "Have you seen this guy?"
yeah. Roger Wade, a macho, alcoholic, and self-destructive novelist.
There you go. As they are.
So, so like she's happy with his book money. Not happy with him getting some on the side here and wants to get out of here. So there's a lot of pulling strings here and a lot of like willy-nilly with people's safety
Yeah.
and stuff like that. There's so much like twisted manipulation of human beings in this movie. And this is it's so interesting seeing I love when you take a genre and inject it into a different kind of structure because, you know, there's you could watch a handful of noir films, like classic noir films, and get that vibe. And this is such an interesting feel having all this sense of danger, this darkness, these morally ambiguous characters, but dropped in like this cool, it's 70s California kind of vibe. And what Altman does with this is so interesting in terms of not blunting those dark themes and elements and stuff like that, but also like this is like a sunburnt kind of crime story that we're doing here. It's sunny, it's California, it's this weird vibe, and why like Philip Marlowe is not like, yeah, see, he's more like, I can't deal with this. He just like I don't have the energy to deal with this. And it's an interesting twist on some of these things, but I really appreciated this film a lot and twists and turns and some really shocking moments for
It
sure.
does. What you just said there about his character, about he's sort of, I'm done. I think he was done like last week
Yeah.
before this movie started. Like
Yes.
he's like when he's arrested by the cops, he's like, oh, "Come on, like, can you make my day any worse?" And
Well,
not because of like it's bad. It's like the inconvenience of it all.
well, and that I think that's sold perfectly with the first thing that you brought up with the cat food.
Yeah,
You can tell how like he's like, I am not going to another place to find this food for this cat. Cat's gonna deal with it. And then the cat's like, the hell I ain't.
yeah,
Walks it out of here. And it's interesting watching a film with a protagonist at the end of their rope already. We don't see them get to the end of the rope. They're on the end of the rope to start the movie, and then completely pushed over the edge by the end.
yeah. The movie, like I always like to look at what is the hero arc, what is the character arc he's trying to go on, and like what is the lesson they learn as the traditional like hero's journey. And I don't think there is a lesson he learned. He's
Mm-mm.
just so tired by the end. It's like that kind of thing, like when you get home from work and you throw your stuff, like you're supposed to put your shoes on the shelf by the door, put your keys on the hook, put your jacket in the. No, he just throws the stuff in the corner and he walks off. Like that's
Yep.
how tired this man is. And what I'm in my analogy in that his best friend is the jacket, where he's just throwing him in the corner. He's done with him.
Yeah.
In the sense of like he just straight up shoots the guy after like 4 or 5 words with him. He's like, I'm done with this.
Yep, 100%. And it's so funny because the tagline on the poster says nothing says goodbye like a bullet. And if you think about it, that's exactly what happens
In
at the end
fact,
of this
wait,
movie.
correct me wrong. Is that the only bullet shot in the movie? I think it might be.
That's an interesting thing to be like holding over the audience and they don't even know it.
Yeah, because who reads the tagline?
In space, nobody can hear you scream.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's a few that are pretty famous, but I think that's an interesting and just looking at the poster of this film, this drawing of Marlowe and the cigarette kind of falling out of his mouth, half squinting, looking so over it. I'm like, this poster captures his vibe perfectly.
There are a couple scenes I wanted to bring up, or a couple things I
Yep.
thought were interesting. I like the fact he's using strike anywhere matches everywhere, and they work every time on one shot except twice. And it's just I don't know if that was as a artistic choice or literally they were filming and it just didn't work. Where he had like light his cigarette on the candle one time and the other time taking 2 shots at it. And also the thing was the bar he goes to after getting out of jail, which has nobody in it, and it's selling sandwiches for 25 cents and entire pizzas for 50 cents. Yes, I looked at the menu. And it has a guy playing
Dream.
piano. Yeah, I know. Has a guy playing piano behind a bar as a way to attract more customers. And like I was like, that if nothing screams 70s California, this is it.
The vibes were perfect. They really captured the period and all those types of elements here. But no, this was a pretty great film, and I'm glad that I watched it. It's one of those ones where I'm like, I don't go out of my way to check specific movies off my watch list anymore. I honestly, even in my free time, just do the random thing because I know I'm never gonna get through all of these movies. It's impossible. But this was one of those ones where I'm like, okay, I'm glad that I landed on this because this is actually something I really wanted to check out, and I landed. Landed for me for sure.
What I gotta say is I've enjoyed it more talking to you about it than I
Hmm.
did during the movie. Because by the end of the movie, and I finished that movie about 30 minutes before we jumped on this
Yeah.
podcast, and I was like, did I enjoy that? Like, there were certain things that stood out to me. I'm like, but was it good? And talking about it, I'm like, okay, I think I did really like it. It's just that it had to marinate a little bit in me to really get a sense of what actually happened. Because that whole time I was thinking to myself, like, he doesn't have to be part of the story until the last 30 seconds to make
Hmm.
this thing work. And that always frustrates me with writing. But I think that's the point of the story too, is that is he's just along for the ride and he's
Hmm.
so burnt. He's so done that he's
Yep.
like, and of course he's going, he doesn't even have the strength to fight the flow. He doesn't even have the
Hmm.
strength to say, you know what, I'm just going to walk away from this. It does, because he could have, when he got cleared after 3 days sitting in jail, he could have walked away. He, like, not only
Yeah.
that Wade walked away, that his Miss Wade or whatever her name is, she could have walked away. He could have walked away. Everyone could have walked away after probably 30 minutes in this movie.
But they all came to a head
They all
in
came to a
this.
head and they had to keep it moving.
Yep. What I guess my last thing, just a little bit of context too. It's interesting because this came out roughly around within a year or so of Chinatown, which is
Okay.
another California set neo noir. Chinatown feels much more like a traditional
It
noir,
does.
just painted in a different decade and like California setting. I Chinatown, which is so funny because I actually just uh the day we're recording this did my Wednesday reel where I highlight some of my favorite movies and it was Chinatown this morning. Um but this one really feels like, yes, it has all the noir trappings, but it really feels like a 70s California kind of vibe. Like this character feels like a character from a 70s California movie instead of like a hard-boiled detective dropped in a 70s setting. And or because like I know Chinatown's still, I think technically Chinatown is a period piece for the 70s because I think it takes place in the 50s or something like that. But this just keeps reminding me of like the same thing. The Big Lebowski is one of my favorite films of all time. Absolutely love that. I remember watching that for the first time and just being like, what did I watch? And you get that vibe with this movie, but that's the kind of movie that it is. The more it sits on you, sits with you and marinates, you're just like, oh, I feel what this was getting at. And I watched this a couple weeks ago because my wife wanted to watch it, and then I rewatched it the other night just to keep it fresh. And I think upon that second watch, it started clicking more with me second time through. And it actually makes me want to rewatch Inherent Vice from Paul Thomas Anderson because I did not like the movie the first time I watched it, but it gave me a lot of these vibes. I'm like, maybe if I give it another chance, it will click in that same kind of way. But you know, it's a hard sell for when you have to tell somebody it's like might need to like wait a little while and maybe you'll like it. But
Yeah,
like it
that's a hard pitch.
it's one of those types of films. So like if you're in the mood for that, give it a try. This isn't like immediate watch. I had such a good time. I'm gonna watch this again. But I guess Chris, do you have any other final thoughts that you wanted to throw out?
Just to follow up what you just said, like, it's been, looking at the clock now, just about an hour and 15 minutes since I finished this movie, and I'm
Yeah.
just coming around to it. So for this movie, it's, how do I put this? Like, have a cup of coffee before you start watching. This is not a I'm gonna have a beer and watch it and relax,
Mm.
because you got to pay attention.
Yes.
Um, it's a little bit of work, right?
Mhm.
Is it worth the journey? I'd say have somebody you want to talk to about it afterwards to actually sort of understand what you did and did not like about it. Because
Mhm.
there are points you have brought up in our conversation today where I was like, oh, I missed that. And
Yep.
I did put the phone down. I promise I did. I put my full attention to this movie.
Well, it's a dense screenplay too, because there's so many details that go throughout this film because there's so many characters, there's so many fluidly flowing scenes and different elements. So it is one of those types of films that with the investment can be very rewarding.
Exactly.
And so if those are the types of things that you enjoy, if like if you I say that and you're just like, ew, this probably isn't a film for you. But like if you're like, I'm a little intrigued, well give it a try. Give it a try. But Chris, thank you so much for coming on and chatting about the uh Long Goodbye.
No, my pleasure. If you want to listen to me talk about another noir film that involves the occult, we recently covered Constantine City of Demons, which is an animated movie about Constantine, but it is a noir type style movie, but it involves the occult and demons and devils and lots of blood. And don't watch it with the kids.
Yep. Constantine generally not a character that you probably want to dive into with the kids in the room. Still waiting on Keanu, and if DC is going to be making that Constantine too, we'll have to see.
We'll have to see. We had
Uh,
the whole debate on that episode.
I'll make sure to be listening in on that though then. But thank all of you for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. What's your favorite non-traditional neo-noir type film? Because this definitely scratches that particular itch. Make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. The SPDM Crew Podcasting Network is ever expanding. We have so many great shows, all different types of interests, especially if you love movies. There's plenty of those. And if you want to join the crew as a guest on a show like this, the Wasteland Watchlist or any of the others, or you have an idea and you want a place to let it grow, make sure to reach out to us on our website. And if you like our logo, check out High Flyer Creative for all your digital marketing needs. But most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Watchlist here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.